So we're being treated to two different assessments of where things stand with the preemptive de-escalation strikes against preemptive retaliatory de-escalation strikes. Gosh, I haven't been saying it enough. The weekend off, I have to remember what this is because I know it's not war. That's fun. We're being treated with two different assessments of where things stand, where the Trump administration stands. Now, of course, there's a lot that transpired over the weekend, including President Trump's threat to bomb power plants in Iran, turn the lights off effectively, if the Iranians continued to meddle in the Strait of Hormuz. Just this morning, it came over the transom that Trump has postponed those strikes after, quote unquote, productive talks with the Iranians. So that's on hold at the moment. Here's a couple of competing assessments, and then we'll have our friend Stephen Bucci adjudicate the matter. Scott Bessent on Meet the Press said the regime right now, the Iranian regime, that their status in Tehran is the equivalent of Hitler's bunker.
The command and control system of the Iranian regime is in chaos. This is Hitler's bunker. Hitler is dead. Himmler is dead. Goring is dead. Most of what you're seeing are lone wolf activities. The mid-range ICBM that was shot off, these two missiles yesterday, that's out of desperation, Kristen.
IRBM, technically, but okay. VDH is feeling better, thankfully. He was on with Hannity, and he offered this assessment. He believes that, I don't know if he'd go as far as to make the Hitler's bunker comparison, but he definitely agrees with Bessent directionally in terms of this regime is teetering on the brink of collapse.
There's enough evidence to see how things are really going. Europeans would never agree to go anywhere near Iran unless they thought the tide was turning and they think that we're going to win. Otherwise, they would keep still. And the reason that the petro-nations of the Gulf survive is they have their finger in the wind and they're very attuned to the climate. And when you have Al Jazeera praising the United States bombing campaign and saying that it's been underestimated and it's brilliant and effective, you get the feeling that they think not only should the United States finish the job, but it can and will finish the job. And then when you start to see tactical aircraft like Warthogs and Apaches, that means that they're offering almost ground and sea support to hit targets. There's no defense at all when you have that type of aircraft flying at will in Iranian airspace. So you put it all together, and I think it's pretty clear that this rope-a-dope strategy that they have, that we're going to tire before they are, is dependent on just public opinion, the midterms in the United States. And if Trump sees it through, and I think he will, I think they're going to fall pretty soon, in 2, 3, 4 weeks. And I think they know it, and I think the Europeans know it, and I think the Middle East knows it, and their only hope, the Iranians' only hope, is that somebody will call Donald Trump off before the job is finished.
And to VDH's point, the United Arab Emirates joined more than 20 countries, Gulf states, condemning Iran and offering to contribute to appropriate efforts to open the Strait of Hormuz. So that coalition of the willing is coming together. It's not just Gulf states, but it's also Western and Central European countries. Leadership building consensus from Washington. Now, on the flip side, just to give a different perspective, Professor John Mearsheimer from the University of Chicago, who's pretty disinclined to interventions. And I'm not saying he doesn't have some insights. He, in many ways, called the Russian invasion of Ukraine correctly to this point. Mearsheimer argues that because the Trump administration didn't achieve the quick military victory that they anticipated, that there's no easy out. and declaring victory doesn't make it so.
I mean, I think what's going on here, Piers, is that the United States and Israel thought that we could win a quick and decisive victory, either by decapitating the regime or some form of shock and awe campaign for the first few days of the war. And the Iranians would then throw up their hands and they would submit to our demands. And in fact, President Trump has said that he was told that there was a good chance that the Iranians would close down the Strait of Hormuz, but he ignored that warning because he thought we would win a victory before that became a viable option for the Iranians. But what's happened here is that we did not achieve a quick and decisive victory, and we're now in a long war, a war of attrition. And that's a war that the Iranians prepared for, and that's a war that the Iranians are in an excellent position to prevail in. If you think about the various steps up the escalation ladder that we can take, what you see is that the Iranians can match us at every point, and they can cause not only enormous damage for the countries in the region and for the United States military forces that are located there, but maybe even more importantly for the international economy. They have the ability, as you go up the escalation ladder, to tank the international economy. This would be catastrophic. So we are now in a situation, having failed to achieve a quick and decisive victory, where we could lose in a really serious way. What most people say is that what President Trump should do is declare victory and get out. I mean, he can do that, but it will be seen as a humiliating defeat for the United States. And furthermore, you run into the problem that the Iranians themselves might not agree to end the war. The United States can quit, but the Israelis and the Iranians may continue fighting. And again, as I said, the Iranians have a lot of cards to play here. They can do a lot of damage. So even if we walk away, it's not clear that that solves the problem. And then again, where I started, the United States will look like it suffered a humiliating defeat. So I think that President Trump has got himself into a situation where there is really no good exit strategy.
I'm not discounting what Mearsheimer has to say, but I find it very hard to make out the evidentiary case that Iran can go blow for blow with the United States, that they are in a position at this point to cripple the international economy and so forth. That seems to me wildly overstated. But as I said, let's get an expert to adjudicate the matter. Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. Now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's always my pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
So who's closer to the point and the proper assessment, VDH or Mearsheimer?
It's always tough when you have to either agree or disagree with really smart guys, and both Victor Davis Hanson and Mearsheimer are both really smart guys. But I got to tell you, I think Mearsheimer's assessment of the Iranian capabilities are laughable. They're not capable of going toe-to-toe with anybody. They couldn't even go toe-to-toe with the Iraqis in the old days. They're not world beaters. They are not a superpower. They are a desperate, cornered, clearly still can do some damage regime. And I'm sorry, but when did the definition of quick, decisive victory, when is it less than 3.5 weeks? That's kind of a ridiculous standard to put. Oh, if they don't give up after 3 or 4 days, then I guess we lost. No, I'm sorry, Professor. That's you are either so captured by the isolationist view, which, as you pointed out, normally he leans that way, but not in a radical manner. But this assessment, I think, is, I don't understand it. It doesn't fit his previous writings. It doesn't fit his previous assessments of other events. To think, okay, well, we didn't win in a week, so let's just call it quits. I guess we blew this one. Let's go home. So I'm going with Victor David Hansen on this one. I think we're not quite there yet, but the pressure is on, and their supreme leader hasn't even been seen. So, the new one, he could be just, I'm drawing a blank. The old Saturday Night Live thing about Franco, and Franco's still alive.
Yeah,
No,
right. Or like Brezhnev, comrade has a slight cold. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but so how are we to understand this surprise to many? This intermediate range ballistic missile that was fired at Diego Garcia, which is closer to Tehran than, say, Berlin is. And so it exposed, it's argued that Western Europe could be hit by Tehran theoretically, could it be hit by this regime. And that's changed, that potentially changes our understanding of Iran's capacities, or does it?
It doesn't change mine. I think most of us knew they had some capacity to do this, that Europe, at least the eastern half of Europe, which is the half that we get along with better now cooperation-wise than the other half, has been under threat. I guess maybe everybody else just realized, oh, gosh, they do have some of these missiles. And the rest of us are going, yeah, they lie about everything. Why did you think they would not have developed this kind of capacity in the time that the Obama government was funding them? So this is not a big surprise to a lot of people. It's an unfortunate surprise, but it's not a big one. And we need to adjust for it. We need to now seek those missile facilities, which obviously the intel people are now going crazy trying to get some good targeting so that we can service those targets.
There's been some concern expressed about the IRGC engaging in a false flag operation to try to, outrage and galvanize more elements of the Muslim world to its defense. The specific potential false flag would be to damage the Dome of the Rock and the Aqsa Mosque on Temple Mount in Jerusalem. These are like 7th century holy sites for Muslims. So do that, attack those sites, claim it's the Americans or the Israelis who did it, and try to, galvanize at least Shia Muslims to pick up arms in Iran's defense and spiral this beyond its current parameters. What's your level of concern about something like that? Those sorts of operations.
Well, you could say it looks like they may have tried that with this missile strike that the Israelis shot down, fortunately, but some of the pieces landed right on the edge of that district. But, I got to say, I think that ship sailed long ago when the Iranians attacked Mecca and took over the mosque there. Look, the Sunni Arabs are coalescing around opposition to Iran. They've never trusted the Iranians. They think the Iranians are a much bigger threat than the Israelis ever were. And they've realized, look, the Jews apparently just want to do business. They're really not trying to take over the world. The Iranians, on the other hand, want to take over the world and destroy it at the same time. That makes no sense. So I think even if the Iranians tried to do that, okay, Hezbollah would probably go, gosh, this is terrible, let's go kill the Jews. But they're already saying that. The vast majority of the Muslim world, I think even some of the Shia, would say, no, they're not shooting in that direction. How in the world could you say they did this? And, it would quickly be discovered who really did it, and would be the last nail in the coffin, Iran. And I think what would be unfortunate with that is that might trigger attacks from the Sunni countries that are not anywhere near as precise or well targeted as what Israel and the United States are using, which means there would be a lot more infrastructure damage and a lot more civilian casualties within Iran in response to that kind of thing. So I hope they don't do that, because I think it would be bad for their own country and bad for the region.
What about threats in the homeland here? You've had a couple of different retired brass, including James Marks, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General, talk about the potential for cyber attacks on U.S. companies from the Iranians as well as the Russians. Kash Patel issued another alert about cyber attacks from the Russians. But I mean, I suppose that's sort of a constant threat. And also drone incursions in the United States, particularly after the incident at that Air Force base.
The drones concern me less, because they got to get all the drones over here. They could get one, they could get two, but now we're on the watch for that kind of technology, and I think our protective layers are pretty good at things, particularly if we're looking. The cyber stuff, a little more concerning. Spider Marks, you know, he's an old friend, by the way, but he was a straight-up intel guy. In 10 years or so, he's kind of repurposed himself into a cyber expert, and that is a danger, but I don't think we're near existential. It's, you know, they might hit some companies. They're not going to bring down the power grid. They're not going to cause a nuclear plant to explode. They do not have those kind of capabilities. The Russians potentially could do more damage, but I don't think the Russians really want to get that helpful to the Iranians. They want to look like they're standing up to America, but they want to do it with cost as possible. And doing something like that would incur a cost. And I don't think Putin wants to do that. I don't think he can deal with that.
Just one thing. This is another sort of topic area that you're hearing discord. Some people say there's a problem here. Other people suggest it's vastly overstated. I'm talking about sort of the quote-unquote U.S. ammo shortage. There's a piece by Seth Jones in the Wall Street Journal, who is president of a Defense and Security Department at the Center for Strategic International Studies. You know, so he's a wonk in the space, I guess. He talks about the need for us to improve our defense industrial base post haste. Military planners should be particularly worried about China, which has vastly superior capabilities to Iran. The Chinese industrial base, which is on a wartime footing, has produced thousands of hypersonic cruise and ballistic missiles capable of precision strikes, along with millions of drones. U.S. bases, Air Force, naval vessels, other infrastructure operating within the first island chain from south from Japan through Taiwan to the northern Philippines are highly vulnerable to attack. It makes that threat, it makes it essential the U.S. have enough long-range munitions and unmanned systems to strike ships, aircrafts, land targets from a distance. We also need more air defense systems and equipment to defend critical infrastructure. So is this, saber-rattling for somebody who's flacking for defense contracts, or is this really addressing a deficiency that needs to be addressed by the Pentagon?
Well, I don't think Seth is just flocking for defense industry. The president had leaders of defense industry in at the White House and said, hey, we need to jack this up. The American defense infrastructure over the Obama years and then Biden, Trump tried to turn it around a little bit in the first term and has been working on it more thus far in this term. We let that stuff lay fallow. We are not building enough capability. And the example I always use, and it's not a high-tech one, but we only have one factory in the United States of America that builds tanks. And, it's not like they can pump them out like World War II where they were doing 2 or 3 a day out of each defense line. So we've let that kind of capacity all the way across the line, including in with missiles and stuff like that, have let it wither. And we need to reconstitute it and get it building things because, as we see, even with nothing but precision weapons, man, you go through that stuff quick. Anybody who's been in a firefight knows you use your bullets up really fast. That's why most guys who've been in combat, that you ask them, how many magazines do you carry, brother? As many as I own and as many as I can carry with me, because you don't ever want to run out. It's the same thing writ large for the nation, and right now we're short for somebody like me who wants to see a whole bunch and never be able to run. We're not quite at that level of comfort. So we do need to get the defense industrial base moving again. It's not like they're going to run out next week, but it's something you can't fix in a week. So you got to start planning for what's going to happen down the road.
This also developed over the weekend. Cuban government announcing that they're preparing for a possible U.S. attack following threats from Trump. Would it be judicious, preparing for an attack in the United States, the Cubans, whatever that looks like, especially without electricity. But do you think it would be judicious for the Trump administration to do anything but other than continue to engage in diplomatic talks with the Cubans at this point?
I don't think we need to do much else. They're kind of stewing in their own juices right now, realizing that all of their patrons are disappearing. That's going to have an effect. We're kind of busy right now with Iran. I don't think we need to deal with Cuba yet, but it's something to watch, and we got enough people do things at once. I don't know if we want to do two regime changes at once, but it's at least worth keeping an eye on. But I don't think it's going to be something that we're going to be starting to bomb Havana next week. I just don't see that.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
And he joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Your beloved dog and a stranger are both drowning. You can only save one. Who do you save? Every time Dennis Prager asks that question, his audience splits 3 ways. 1/3 chooses the dog, 1/3 chooses the stranger, and 1/3 aren't sure. Why? Because we live in an age where increasingly feelings define right and wrong. But if morality is